Emergency funds aren't just financial tools, they're freedom tools. They buy you time, they lower your stress, and they let you make better decisions in a crisis. But the question isn't just, do you have one? It's actually, is it designed for you? Here's what you need to think about when establishing or adjusting your emergency fund. Start by reviewing your monthly expenses. You want to figure out what you'd need to cover. What do you absolutely need to keep in your life and running if you lost income? This means knowing the difference between essential and non-essential or discretionary expenses and being honest about which ones you could realistically cut. Then you have to decide how many months you need. The typical advice is 3 to 6 months of expenses, but that's just a starting point. You decide that based on how many incomes are in your household, how stable or predictable the income is, your personal risk tolerance. All of those things go into deciding whether you need 3 to 6 months or more. Are you expecting a major transition? Any life changes, like a new baby, a job, or a retirement starting soon? Your emergency fund should flex with you. You may need more or less depending on where you're at in your life. You also need to factor in business property, rental costs, and anything else that might be outside of your personal expenses. If you own a home, a rental, or a business, you have those additional layers to think through. Think through insurance deductibles, repairs, vacancy, or supply costs. Sometimes you might want to keep a separate emergency fund just for those areas. Then you also need to think about health and disability risks. If you had a medical crisis, could your emergency fund cover both your expenses and your deductible or out-of-pocket maximums? And if you couldn't work, how long is the waiting period on your disability insurance? Make sure your fund is covering all the gaps. Also, keep your emergency fund in an accessible, low-risk location. Ideally, it can earn a little interest, like a high-yield savings account. Maybe part of it can go into a short-term CD, but you want to be sure that you can get to it quickly in an emergency. Also, you want to coordinate it with your bigger goals. If your fund is underbuilt, you could redirect cash flow or reposition certain assets to shore it up. Just be mindful of the impact on your tax plan or long-term savings goals by any changes that you might make. And if using your emergency fund might derail other plans, then figure out ahead of time what might get paused and what might stay protected if you were to get there. Have a plan in advance so you're not just making decisions willy-nilly in a time of emergency. Now, setting up your emergency fund isn't about perfection, it's about readiness. And I've got something for you. I have a free checklist that walks you through all of these steps step by step, and you can grab it from the resources page on my website at lindagriz.com. That's LINDAGRIZ.com. You deserve an emergency fund that fits your actual life, not someone else's.